The Odyssey is an epic fantasy action film written and directed by Christopher Nolan. It's the latest adaptation of Homer's Greek epic poem of the same name. The Odyssey follows Odysseus, the Greek king of Ithaca, as it chronicles his long, perilous journey home after the Trojan War and his encounters with many magical and mythical beings as he attempts to reunite with his wife Penelope. This will be a spoiler-free review, but before we get into it, are you going to see The Odyssey? Are you a fan of the original Greek poem, or are you boycotting this film for some silly reason unknown to anyone else? Let me know down in the comments below, and without wasting any more time, let's just jump straight into it. Starting off with the good, the score of this film is excellent. Ludwig Göransson just seems to know how to enhance every film that he's a part of. The score really helps bring you back in time, and each piece sounds wonderful. To me, they capture the sound, they feel very ancient while also sounding new and unique. Some of my favorite pieces from the film are Ithaca, Troy, Hades, and the Trial of the Bow / Vengeance. A movie's score can really elevate the film or derail it, and I'm glad that the Odyssey has a score that matches the grand scope that they're going for. There are a lot of great performances in the Odyssey, but there are three that stand out above the rest to me, and those three are Matt Damon as Odysseus, Anne Hathaway as Penelope, and John Leguizamo, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, as Eumas. I believe that's also how you pronounce that name. All three of them do such a phenomenal job and are worth the price of admission alone. Matt probably has the hardest job of anyone in the film playing Odysseus. The film can either sink or swim with the performance that he gives, and he gives one of the best performances of his career, I'd say. He plays him so well, a man haunted by his destruction of what we learn is called Zeus's law and not wanting to face the consequences of what that holds for society at the time. His whole journey home and everything that happens after that is because of his Trojan horse and the invading and the ending of the Trojan War. He wants to defy the gods by all means, even though he knows what they foretold is inevitable. And it all goes back to him and his journey home to finally coming to terms with what he's done. It's such a satisfying journey from start to finish, and I can't believe that we are able to see this in a film of this grand scale. Anne Hathaway as Penelope is also phenomenal, especially the scenes where she has to keep it together in front of all her suitors and behind the scenes away from them all. But some of the best scenes we get are when she and Odysseus are together. Their relationship is wonderful, and you can tell that she is loyal to him and only him, and will wait for as long as she needs to because she believes that he isn't dead. In the final hour or so, we get Anne at her best. You get such a wide range of emotions that you never know what she's going to do next. She's a very calculated character, knowing what's best to do and what time to do it. And when she finally is ready to pick a suitor, we get what might be the best sequence of the entire film. Then we have John Leguizamo, a man who, whenever he's on screen, it was just wonderful. He might not have the biggest part in the movie, but to me, he felt like the heart of the film. Everything that Odysseus stood for and meant for his people's lives through his character, Odysseus. Whenever he was the focus of the scene, you knew you were in for a treat, and the only thing I could say negative about it is that I just wanted more of him, which is probably the best negative thing that you could have from a performance. Whenever one of those three characters are on the screen, they just demand your attention, and they never let up for a moment. That's when you know you're in for a great time. Having these powerful performances just make it easier to fully invest yourself in the film. The thing that surprised me the most about the Odyssey was the way that it leaned a lot more into horror than I could have ever imagined. The vast majority of the time it's not, but there are three different sections of the film that just lean heavily into the horror side of things, and each one of them are unique from one another. Three distinct sequences that all give a different feeling from different horror genres. One feeling ripped straight out of a survival slasher flick with a beast who doesn't even think of you as anything other than food or just as a nuisance disturbing its lifestyle. One that feels straight out of a body horror kind of / folk film mixed together. An individual who assumes the worst of people and preys on their desperate nature. The sequence of the transformation and leading up to it is very haunting. And the last one, On the Shore of Hades, this is the least horror-like up until a turning point when we see the dead who are upset with Odysseus and then pushing their way to Odysseus and his crew to exact revenge. It's a very suspenseful scene, and all of them serve a purpose to Odysseus' thematical journey and finally getting ready to be home. I never expected this from this film. I maybe should have, knowing what the Odyssey is and what it's about, dealing with mythical beings like the gods and whatnot, but these were some of my favorite sequences in the whole film. All three of them felt unique and very well put together, and I can't believe that we got this in a Christopher Nolan film. There are a lot of great moments throughout the movie, and the movie is at its best when it's focusing more so on Odysseus and his crew's journey home from the Trojan War, but that doesn't mean any of the other scenes felt lesser. Nothing felt like it was wasting my time, which for an almost 3-hour film is very impressive. There's one scene that I think about more than any other in the film, and that is the lead up to the sacking of Troy. Taking the horse into the city, the Trojans testing the horse for any trickery that the Greeks might have put into it. Then, in the dead of night, they descend out of it, killing those who would raise alarm too soon, to then capturing a gate to let their armies know that they are ready, throwing a flame over the wall to see 20 or so people from the flame Odysseus throws over, to then seeing Agamemnon standing in the middle of the gate when it finally opens, while tens upon hundreds of men rush behind him, swarming the city. I had goosebumps during the whole sequence, and just thinking about it now, I'm getting more goosebumps. To me, it's one of Nolan's most well-done sequences in his entire filmography, and I can't wait to see it again whenever I get the chance to see the Odyssey. One of the last things I wanted to talk about is the third act of the film. I'm not going to get into specifics because I want to keep this spoiler-free, but it's where everything just started to really come together. Even smaller things I had issues with, which I'll get into later on, just go away, and it ends up being one of the most engaging third acts that I've seen from a big blockbuster film in a while. And once it hits a certain point, the movie just doesn't let up anymore. This is the culmination of the past 2 hours or so, and this might be one of Nolan's best finals. Even going all the way to the end, I don't think I have a single bad thing to say about it. I was already fully invested because of the past 2 hours and the story that we've been giving, but I was completely enthralled because of the final act, and it just took this movie over the edge for me. The Odyssey had a lot to live up to in my mind, it being the next Christopher Nolan film. He's one of my favorite working directors, and I think the Odyssey lived up to my lofty expectations. I don't have much mixed things to say about the film, but I do have a few small things. So, moving on to the mix, I don't really have much to say, like I said, but some of the film's costuming just felt a bit off to me. Some of it I really liked, and it felt like it could have been ripped straight out of a history book. And then some of the other costuming choices just felt a little boring. And I don't really want to say lazy, but they didn't feel like they were on par with some of the other costumes in the film. It was a very mixed bag overall, but I'd say there was more good than average in the costuming department. And like I've said, some of the performances in this film are really great, but some of the others kind of just felt out of place to me. The two that really didn't do anything for me up until a certain point are Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson. I don't think either of them really did a bad job at all, but compared to the others, I just felt like they left a lot to be desired. Starting with Tom Holland, I just can never buy him as the character that he was supposed to be playing. I don't think Tom is a bad actor at all, but I think you could have gotten anyone else to be playing Telemachus. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm awful with pronunciations. Just something about every line delivery he gave felt a little underwhelming, like they went with the first take that he gave and that's all. By the end of the film, in the third act, it felt like he was better in the role, but the vast majority of the runtime, whenever he was on screen, he was easily the weakest part. Everyone around him just made him feel like he was out of his league, and it's just a shame that that's the takes that they went with in this film. Moving on to Robert Pattinson, this one really hurt me because Robert Pattinson for the last decade or so has been doing some of the best acting around, and I was beyond ecstatic when I found out he was going to be in this film, and all the clips shown felt like we were getting another one of those roles that just cement him as one of the best working actors today. But a lot like Tom, he just kind of felt disappointing. Not that he was acting poorly, but I just wanted more out of his character. And maybe that's just me, but for someone making plans in the background, trying to get what he desires, no matter what it takes, he's just way too passive for my liking. And maybe that's just the character in the Odyssey, but I think you could have done something more with his character, make him more on the offensive side of things to make him a bigger threat than he actually is. But a lot like Tom, in the third act, it feels like he hits his groove, and just being that slimy little cretin that he is, it all came together really nicely, but I just wish that third act feeling was the same way between the first and second act of the film as well. I just wish both of them were given more time, or just felt like they did in the third act throughout the film. These are the only performances that I felt were lacking the most compared to everyone else in the film. Maybe on a second watch these will feel better, but as of now that's just how I feel. And those are really the only mixed things that I can think of, and I don't have anything bad to say about the film, so let's just move on to my final thoughts. The Odyssey sees Christopher Nolan at the top of his game. The set pieces of this film are some of the best of his career. You get some of the best performances in any of his films, and you get a glimpse of what it would be like to have Nolan make a horror film. And a third act that had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm an avid fan of the epic poem, but I think this is definitely a worthy adaptation and one that would make Homer proud. To see a story live on and help inspire the next generation of creatives. The Odyssey, to me, gets a 10 out of 10. This is another fantastic film in a year full of fantastic films. I don't know if this is my favorite Nolan film, but this is definitely a worthy addition to his filmography. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date for my next review, and have a great rest of your day.